It's kind of fascinating to think how much we can learn from a child and their behavior. Well, how much we can learn from how a child approaches things. I think it's pretty fascinating. I want to thank my cousin Brenda, who she messaged me the other day in a response to the video that I had, and she said how how fascinating it is, or how crazy it is that how our beliefs, or how our beliefs and perspectives, how we see things, kind of dictate the thoughts that we have, um, and our behavior, in essence. But so that kind of got me to thinking of what one, how absolutely true that is, but kind of how those while those beliefs and perspectives, may change over time throughout the course of our life, how they get shaped pretty early on. As a child, and may be frustrating to some of you who might be in responsible for that child, but as a child, how they approach situations kind of with genuine and like pure curiosity, no really intentional thinking of kind of what's going on, just pure, I don't want to say blind, but curiosity, and which are more prone to mistakes and accidents, could be hospital bills, broken furniture. Uh, so that kind of gave me the idea, the sense of, well, a child's approach to a situation, is more of a beginner's mind approach, and how that kind of shifts or shapes throughout the course of our experiences, the course of our life. That kind of got me to thinking of a really insightful conversation that I had with one of the youth I work with. I'm social work at a residential treatment facility for at-risk youth, Mercy Home. I had a pretty insightful conversation with a youth, 13 years old. This was a few months ago. Congratulations, also. I believe he's graduating today. Um, Similar, not similar, but something along this context. But I'll get back to that. Mm. So with this idea of a beginner's mind, and the genuine approach of things with pure curiosity and observing, learning, taking in what's going on. I want to talk about kind of like my things that I really enjoy. Basketball is one thing that I really enjoy. I'm very intentional now about instilling as part of my day as a ritual to make sure I'm doing something that I have pure joy for. Basketball is something that I've always really enjoyed since my childhood, but it's something that I stopped doing for. But I say stop doing it. I wasn't doing it consistently. Every now and then I would pick up a basketball, but not to the point that you would think it's something that I enjoy or that brings me joy. But I was on a basketball team. In my middle school team, my middle school, sixth, seventh, eighth grade. I didn't play in high school. Not that I stopped liking it. That was, by that time, it was just more something, kind of my anxiety and kind of fear of trying out and performing in front of others. So I never really played basketball again until my adulthood. Up until a few years ago, probably the last 3 years ago, I started using it more as a hobby again, something that I love to do. But even then, I remember, at work, every Wednesday night, other youth care workers would get together and have a couple basketball games after shift. We would work 2 to 10, so we would play sometimes 2 in the morning. I thought that was great, but I only really did that a handful of times. I remember there would be some times where I would going up to the gym after work, and um, I would always feel some kind of sort sense of anxiety. Sometimes I would go there if I feel comfortable. Sometimes I kind of look through the glass and then just to see, for whatever reason, I'd make an excuse, or today wasn't such a great day. I'd rather have a drink, or I should have got some sleep. I had a long day, and I should wind down some other way. Because I'm going to be hyped up, not be able to sleep. So there would be a lot of times where I kind of just walk away from that situation. Um, and little by little, after work, I would kind of do my own workouts by myself, play basketball, and again pick it up more as a hobby. But I still wouldn't really play in front of others. Uh, well, the last year or two, I signed up for this basketball for this basketball fitness class. It's a great class through Swish House, which they were affiliated with Mercy Home, and then the pandemic happened, and they were so they were able to facilitate their classes at Mercy Home, which they did before that. So they opened up again in a soccer facility in Pilsen in the fall. So I remember when they first opened up, it was kind of like more of a light open since we were in a pandemic. But I remember kind of going up the ramp. I remember the first time kind of going. I'd already done a couple Swish House classes, maybe like 7 or 8, but when they were at Mercy Home. Uh, and so now I'm doing it in this new facility. They have like this ramp that you just kind of walk up to get to the actual gym. So I remember just kind of walking up that gym and then, or walking up that ramp and then having that feeling, that sense of kind of build up, and I'm just like, shit. And this is something again, this was just 8 months ago, 9 months ago, September. I just got diagnosed with ADHD in July, so kind of understanding kind of what my own behaviors and how I approach things. I had felt that kind of build up, that tension, stuff that I felt like throughout my whole life. And where normally, I just talked about, a couple of years before that, I would kind of sometimes walk away from playing basketball. Same thing, same tool, same thing that I love to do, something that brings me joy. Uh, Now I have this tension building up. Where before, again, there were a lot of times I would just walk away. I kind of feel that same pressure, which kind of supersedes the thing that I'm going to do in the first place, which is something that I love to do, which is basketball. This fear of not knowing or uncertainty. I don't know. So I didn't really think about that. I mean, I ended up, that was my first class that we did in the Pilsen gym. But it wasn't until 2 or 3 months later. I think it was then February where I thought about that moment. This time I just finished up class and I'm a lot more comfortable. It's interesting that kind of once we get over some of our anxieties, or once we get over something that we no longer fear, or we still do, but we approach it in a different sense. We don't no longer think about that. But anyway, I was kind of walking down the ramp this time, and then I see this toddler, this child, walking up that same ramp. How I did it the very first time I did it, but I don't know if she was, because it's also connected to a soccer building or a soccer facility. So there's soccer on one side, basketball on the other side. So I don't know if she was um, doing soccer, if she was there for someone else, a sibling or something. I don't remember seeing any other kids around her. She's with her parents or her guardian. But I just remember seeing this girl running up that ramp, and just like pure joy and bliss, just like not even looking which direction or who or what. Was just like could have crashed into me or someone else, who was coming down, because you can't really see, you're coming around the corner. But that's just like someone who just like, I just was fascinating just looking at this young person, um, who's just like running and just like no worries, no nothing. And I just kind of made me think about um, the few months earlier, how I was doing something that as an adult, 33 years old, I was going to do something that I love, and how fucking of a shitty feeling that was. But so that just again the concept of the beginner's mind and just how those things are affected over time, and um, so the conversation that I had with the youth at work, he was someone who, well, they had just started up school again. They were opening up slowly, so I think they were going like once or twice a week. But this was like the second week that they were back in school, and I was working an overnight shift, and I noticed that like the youth was kind of just antsy, just like pacing back and forth, um, and so I kind of had an idea or thought or sense that you might have some anxiety about going to school the next day, tomorrow. This was Monday, so he was going in on Tuesday, I believe. Um, and he didn't admit it, or maybe he didn't know, or I don't, not sure. But I knew he had some kind of sense of worry. Um, so I kind of just let him air it out. Ended up saying just like, oh, I don't want to go to school. I don't think I want to go to school. And then you can just tell like his mind was just racing, just like, well, he's like, I know that's not really realistic. That's not kind of the right answer, or that's not the solution. This boy is freaking bright. But he just said, I'm just not gonna talk. I'm not gonna say anything. And I just let him talk some more and just to kind of let him air it out. But and then he talked about kind of just like some of his teachers, how people are saying that he's not himself. He hasn't been in school all year. They've been doing remote learning throughout the whole year. So when he was trying to explain that he's not himself, they were saying that he's not himself. They're talking about kind of how he would respond or be more engaged and present in a virtual setting. So then I really don't want to get too much kind of into like the conversation that we had, but just I was able to help him kind of frame just his when he walked into new situations. For instance, when he had first moved into that residential home, kind of reminded him how he was, to himself. He stood in his room for a very long time. He was more comfortable with me. We had worked previously before, so I was able to have a kind of conversation with him about what he was feeling. But he was able to then see kind of how his engagement in the setting that he is now with the people and the youth and the staff is a lot different than it was when he first moved in. Similarly to when he first started school virtually, how his now engagement is different from when it was when he first started. So he just stopped. He was pacing back and forth and just like very fidgety. And then he just stopped and he's like, shit, Abe. He's like, I was just today in class, I was thinking I couldn't focus because I was worried about lunch. We have lunch the next class, and for the whole hour, I was worried about dropping a meatball on my shirt, and then everybody else was going to be looking at me for the rest of the day. So kind of able to like kind of talk about kind of what he was perceiving things aren't like necessarily like it's not reality. It hasn't happened. So losing that sense of beginner's mind. I didn't talk to him about kind of beginner's mind. That terminology is not something that's gonna connect with an eighth grader, but around the concept of it, he was able then to again, this youth is so bright. He's just like he's 13 now. He's like, I remember when he's like, when I was 8 years old, I was at the store, I was at the mall with my cousin, And I just told her, like, what do you like? So the cousin, she was just dancing freely and just like in the store. And he was 8 years old, and he's just like, "What are you doing? Like, stop! Like, aren't you afraid of what being embarrassed? Like, you're embarrassing me." He's just like, "Don't you care what people think?" And he made that connection right then and there. He's just like, and this is like now years later. He's like, I bet that she doesn't. He's like, I bet now that she worries about what other people think. He's like, I bet if I go to the mall with her now that she won't be dancing, just freely. Um, so again, this is 13-year-old kind of teaching me, uh, and then making that kind of connection about how my approach at 33 years old, going to play basketball, something that I enjoy, with the fear of something that wasn't real. So yeah, that's kind of what I had, and again, thanks Brenda for the the segue to that and giving me the idea for that. And this is something kind of that I've installed in my practice. I have little notes that I put on my mirror in my room. This is one that I have. I just took it down a little while ago. I don't know if you can see that. It reads, "You know nothing, Jon." Excuse me. "You know nothing, Jon Snow," which is a reference from Game of Thrones, my favorite. "Life is a lifelong form of education. Approach today with a beginner's mind."